Josh, good to see you. I know you're a football fan, and today we're talking about the retirement red zone and the 5 money moves that you should consider making now. The retirement red zone, generally known as the 5 years before and the 5 years after you retire, which is when investment decisions and market fluctuations can have a significant impact on your financial security. So step number 1, define your budget and expenses, but only 40% of people have ever calculated what they'll need to live on in retirement.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So many people want to know how much they need to retire. What's the number? What number do I need to get to? And that number is completely different from everybody because you got to understand the way you live now is completely different from your neighbor and your sister and your brother-in-law. It's completely different. And it's going to continue to be completely different in retirement. So in order to know how much money you need for retirement, you have to start with what does it cost you to live on a day-to-day basis?
Right. And then next, you need to define all your sources of guaranteed income.
Yeah, most folks start with their Social Security, which is their first source of guaranteed income, pensions, annuities, figure out what's going to come in every month, compare that to what needs to go out every month. And then most folks headed into retirement are going to have a gap. And you got to understand that gap.
That brings us to step number 3. Only when you've done number 1 and number 2, when you know what's going out and what's coming in, you help clients build an income plan to bridge that gap.
Exactly. You got to know what's coming in, what's going out, what the difference is, and then we have to decide how to bridge that gap, where to draw income from to bridge that gap. And there's a number of things to consider. Taxation is a big one in bridging that gap, but you have to look at all these different factors and decide where's the best place to take the money and how to bridge that gap.
And then circling back to guaranteed income, you specialize in helping people figure out the most financially optimal time to claim Social Security. This is probably one of the most important decisions you will make in retirement.
And one of the most overlooked decisions. People think they just log on and sign up for their Social Security. And there is actually over 500 different calculations for Social Security. And the sooner you take it, the smaller the check's going to be.
Right.
And roughly your check's going to be 8% larger for every year that you wait. But you have to understand what waiting costs you. It either costs you time and you're working longer, or it costs you money and where you're having to spend some of your own money before you draw Social Security. And everybody's situation is going to be completely different on whether they should take their Social Security sooner or later, longevity, health. There's a lot of factors in there.
If you're married,
your spouse's health, there's so many things that go into that. It's not just as simple as calling Social Security and saying, I want to start my check next week.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Don't do that, please. You're right. And then last, we do have to talk about taxes, which will be one of your biggest expenses in retirement. But the good news is you can take action now to save thousands later.
Yeah, for most Americans, the lion's share of the money they've saved in retirement is tax deferred, which means you chose not to pay taxes on it before so that you can pay taxes on it later. Now, there's a couple of flaws in that line of thinking. We were told taxes were going to be lower later. Unfortunately, that's just not true. We're in very, very low tax brackets right now, the lowest we've seen in forever.
Right.
And then also you got to think about, you didn't put $100 into your 401k 30 years ago so that now you could take out $100. No, you put $100 in 30 years ago so you could take out thousands of dollars now.
Right.
So what that means is you chose not to pay taxes on $100 late before so that now you could pay taxes on thousands of dollars. Well, that just doesn't make sense. But that's what happens when we get our tax advice from the IRS. So, tax planning is huge in retirement. And the sooner you start planning for those taxes, the better, because then you can decide when and how much you pay the IRS. If you wait, the IRS will decide when and how much you pay them.
Exactly.
And that you don't want.
Right, of course. And so if you can start planning now, moving some money into these other triangles, but especially the tax-free triangle. That's what's going to be most tax effective for most people.
Absolutely. And that's why it seems like every video, this is where one of the major points we talk about.
Well, there are just so many reasons. And I can't tell you how many times we've talked. I mean, I know you know, but it's wild. And how much I've learned about Roth conversions and Roth accounts. And Josh, if we had had this conversation when I was 20 years old, I'd be retired by now. So
yes, ma'am.
It's important. If somebody wants to talk through any of these strategies, if they're creeping into that retirement red zone, we know you know football too. What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, they can call us directly at the office at 260-488-8300 or jump on the website and schedule a meeting at millardfg.com.
Great. Josh, thank you.
Thanks, Erin.